We're learning the Sikha on Yud Shevat and Chelek to Zion on page 139. The Sikha regarding Yud Shevat, the Rabbi will discuss the Lashon of the Medrash that the Frierdiker Rebbe brings in the Maim of Basi Lagani. In Sava, Kodesh Baruch Hu, Liyis Leis Barach Dir B'Tachteinim. The Rebbe will discuss it, at least Bekitzer, what the precise words that the Medrash says means. And then Be'ikir, the Arichas of the Sikha, will be applying this Medrash to Aveda B'Payel. And here in the Sikha, very, very practically, the Rebbe will explain what this means, what the Frierdiker Rebbe is bringing this for, and how we apply it. The Shir today is being learned L'Nishmas, Rabbi Yosef ben Yamin ben Rabbi Menashe Koltman. Der Teichen von a Yahrzeit, von Yom Mistalkus von a Tzadik, the idea of the day of a Yahrzeit, the day of the passing of a Tzadik, when as an Oile kol Maisa v'Torasa v'Avedasai asher avad kol Yimei Chayav, the day which all of his Aveda, all of his Torah, all of his work in this world gets elevated, is for uns beikir auf zum Mizbeinen sein sich in Maisa v'Torasa v'Avedasai von Balei Lula. So for us, primarily, this is a time to contemplate upon what his work and his Aveda was in this world. Kedei areis zu nehmen von dem Deira and Chaye Yom Yom for jeden von Ahilchem be'Kveisav, to take out a lesson for daily life, for all those that are following in his footsteps, in Maisa v'Torasa v'Avedasai shel Adam, in the work and the Aveda and the Torah of a person's life. Vibalt as by Yedi Yidden is Maisa v'Torasa v'Avedasai asher avad b'Koyim Echaya v'Ribu Yinyonim. So since by every single Yid, the work and his Aveda and his Torah in this world includes many, many details. Balachas kama v'kama by Nasi Yisrael, most definitely by a Rebbe, a leader of Yidden, is the Rebbe nit allemal barer v'golui, was es is the nekude ikris von Avedasai, was von dem darf man reisnehmen die Ikaira. It's not always clear and revealed what it is that's the main point that we have to focus on to take an Haira, a message, a lesson from his Aveda. However, here in our case, the Yahrzeit von Kveikdish is more v'chamiyad more. When it comes to the Yahrzeit of the Frierdiker Rebbe, hat man doch die klare Haira, die Torah, we have the very clear Torah, a lesson from the Torah of the Balei Lula himself. Der Maimer, der Bramaschel, Basi Lagani, was the Rebbe, Balei Lula, allein hat gegeben zu sein Mistalkus. The Maimer of Basi Lagani, which the Frierdiker Rebbe prepared and commanded that it should be printed for the day of Yud Shevat, which was the day he passed away. Was from der Torah weiß man, and was es darf sein, the Ikera is Beinus b'yom Hilula Shalai. So from this Maimer, we know what's the primary thing to focus on in connection with his Yom Hilula. Und was man darf davon mitnehmen bei Avedas Adam b'Poil. And by looking what it says in the Maimer, we can also know what it is that we have to take out to apply in our actual Aveda. So the Rebbe will start with what it says at the end of the Maimer, and then, as I said, be'ikr focus on the beginning of the Maimer, where it speaks about Dir B'Tachteinim. B'siyam ha'Maimer ret the Rebbe wegen Geudel und Nechitzes inyan Azrizas in Avedas Hashem b'kiyam ha'Torah v'ha'mitzvahs. The Maimer concludes with discussing how great, how important, and how necessary Zrizus, alacrity, in fulfilling Torah or mitzvahs is. Varom mi hu ha'yedei ite izmaneh. Who is it that knows when his time in this world will come to an end? As the Medrash says, Ein adam shalet loymar, a person never has the control to say, Hamtinu li at she'esach hashbenosai v'at she'atzav lebeisei. Give me another moment, give me more time. I need to do some calculations. I need to share with my family my last will and testament. A person doesn't have that time. So every moment of a person's life, he has to grab the opportunity he has to fulfill a mitzvah. What this Medrash expresses is, as der Inyan, Hazrizas, Ba'avedas Hashem, is nit nur a praten der Aveda. The idea of doing a mitzvah immediately on your first opportunity is not just one detail in a person's serving Hashem. Ukapashtus ma'im Chazal, and as the simple meaning of what Chazal tell us, ei machmitzenes ha-mitzvahs, that do not delay, do not chometz, like chometz, which you wait and you procrastinate. So don't be machmitz, don't wait with fulfilling a mitzvah. So that would sort of say that you're going to have the same mitzvah. It's a question if you're going to have the mile of zrizis, if you do it now or do it later. Nor, however, from the Medrash that says that a person doesn't know when his time in this world ends, no, this is negay, it's a kolas aveda. So that means grabbing the very first opportunity is necessary because of your whole serving Hashem. Ek kan verlieren de ganze Sach. You never know, you could lose the whole opportunity to do the mitzvah. This lesson, that a person doesn't have control over his life in this world, is this is every single moment, every single second in his life in this world. 120 years of a person's life. Going back to the Maimah Chazal of Ein Machmitzen, we could actually see even more Shteit Beremez in Maimah Chazal now. We could see hinted in the language that Chazal say when they talk about procrastinating and delaying the fulfillment of a mitzvah. Ein Machmitzen is a mitzvahs. In Bas mitzvah liyadcha aseh yisem miyad. Do not delay fulfilling a mitzvah, an opportunity of a mitzvah that comes, fulfill it immediately. What do we see from this expression Machmitzen? B'shas melekta up the mitzvah. If you delay the mitzvah, is anshtat ushmartem es hamatzais, keeping the matzais, that's the literal reading of the pasuk, when a person has to make sure the matzah doesn't turn into chametz and bake it immediately. But Chazal say it also means es hamitzvais, that you should keep and fulfill immediately a mitzvah. So if you don't take the first opportunity to fulfill it, vertas chametz. Just like with matzahs, delaying it becomes chametz. Heipach hamitzvah, the opposite of what the mitzvah is. So too Chazal are telling us, if you don't fulfill a mitzvah with zrizas, it becomes chametz. That's the point that the Friediger Rebbe focuses on in the conclusion of the Maimah. The idea of zrizas. Now going back to the beginning of the Maimah, which the Rebbe will focus on primarily here in the Sikha. On in Tchilas HaMaimer, in the beginning of the Maimah of Basiligani, redt in was es darf sein die Aveda. What it is that the main Aveda of a Yid consists of. And welchen inyan darf sein die zrizas, in what area should be the zrizas, the alacrity of a Yid in his Aveda. And then, was Nisava Kadosh Baruch Hu, Liyas Leis Barach, Dire B'Tachtainim. What the Medrash tells us, and the Alter Rebbe quotes in Tanya, and brought and explained extensively in Chassidus, that the Eibishter's desire for creation was to create a dwelling for Hashem here below in this world. Machen Adire B'Tachtainim. That's the main point that the Friediger Rebbe begins the Maimah with. So, the Rebbe will take apart this Maimah Chazal, Liyais lo yisbarach dire b'tachtainim. The precise words that Chazal choose to describe what Hashem's nisava, what Hashem's desire was in creation, will give us insight into what this consists of. So the Rebbe says as follows: Afal pi as durch jede pole von Ayidin bekim a Torah mitzvahs. Yes, it's true. Every action a Yid does, fulfilling Torah mitzvahs. Und al derech zeh kol masach l'shem shemayim ubachol derech echad de'eyu, or any of the other actions that you do for the sake of Hashem, or in all your actions that you have the knowledge of Hashem there. You're accomplishing and bringing this dwelling for Hashem here below. And this fulfills the desire of Hashem in this world. Is aber verstandig. However, it's understood as the Hayra in the minion von Nesava Kadosh Baruch Hu, Liyas Leis Barach Dire B'Tachtainim, was man darf harausnehmen von Yom Eluleh. There's the lesson here that the Rebbe is speaking about that we should take from this medrash of Nesava Kadosh Baruch Hu in connection to the Yom Eluleh of the Friediger Rebbe is nit nur aziris klali of klalas aved from Torah mitzvah. This is not just a general encouragement regarding a person focusing and giving energy to his time to fulfill Torah mitzvahs. Nor ahiram yechedes. There is a very specific lesson here in velchen inyan as dav zayin the ikar aveda sadam be amenuela. In which area a person should put the focus in the aveda in our time that we live in today. And this is also masim to ma'isa v'terasa v'avedase fund and ba'alei elula. This fits with the actual aveda, the focus of the Friediger Rebbe's aveda in his lifetime in this world. So what is the specific lesson that we can take out from this lashon of Chazal, Nesava Kadosh Baruch Hu, Liyas Leis Barach, Dire B'Tachtainim? So v'yuvan behegdem habir in dem diak lashon was the Rebbe bringt in Maimah. Let's take a closer look at the exact words that Chazal choose in this lashon that the Friediger Rebbe brings. What does it consist of? What we see here is in the Eibishter's desire in creation there are three details: Aleph lo yizbarach, Beis dira, and Gimel b'tachtainim. Those are the three details that describe what the Eibishter's desire in creation is. And the Rabbi here in the next part of the Ois will explain these three things, these 3 points, very bekitzer. And the Rabbi condenses here in this little section of this Ois many very deep and profound concepts of Chassidus. I'll just explain and translate basically what it says. And if you want to know the full story and the more authentic idea of what the Rebbe is speaking about, you'll have to do your research. Take a look in the Ha'aris here. The Rebbe will tell you where to look. So, the first point, Aleph, Lo Yizbarach. What does Lo Yizbarach mean? The dire is latzmusi Yizbarach. the dira that Hashem wants us to create for Him is for the very essence of Hashem Himself. Nit nur zu madregis von eures v'giloyim, not just a dwelling for bringing down revelation or levels of light of godliness into the world, but loy. Loy is no level, it's the Eibishter Himself. Beis, the second point, dira. What is the expression of dira? A dwelling mean that the manner in which Hashem is brought down here in this world is nit ba'ifn arai, not to be here in a temporary manner. Nor ba'ifn shall dira b'kviyas. Rather, Hashem should be present in a dwelling. And a dwelling means His permanent place. Permanence means there's no changes. He's here, this is it. Dwelling in a place temporarily, or actually when you talk about dwelling, it's not temporary. Temporary is not a dwelling. That's something which is prone to changes. So dira means that the Eibishter is here, b'kviyas, permanent. Gimel, the third point is b'tachtainim, here below. The dira la'atzmusa is dafke b'tachtainim. The dira for the Eibishter is specifically in the lowest place, nit ba'il mislayainim, not in the highest spiritual worlds. So it's when the Medrash says b'tachtainim, it's dafke here and dafke tachtainim. These three details go hand in hand, they're interconnected, one brings to the other. They, as the Rabbi will explain here, at least very bekitzer. If you're talking about any level of revelation of godliness, even the highest level of revelation, since their existence is not that they are here, they are in essence here, they were always here. There's a time when they weren't here. They came into being. Another detail, azay gilui is berotzen. The fact that they come into being, besides that they don't have to be, it's a chiddush that there are giluyim, but it's also something which the Eibishter decided it should be, berotzen. So that makes their mitzias even something that's less real, less something that must be this way. The Eibishter just decided. So therefore, is nitshayach by zay that in von dira kvias. It's impossible to apply the idea of dira, of real permanence, that this is what it is, that its existence is real and exists not dependent on anything. It's not something that was nischadish, but it is in essence. That can't be applied in its true authentic sense regarding any level of revelation. Heyais, mitziyusam is nitke mitzias amitis mitzadatzmam. Their existence is not real and truthful from themselves. It's a revelation of they are what they are because what they reveal of the essence of Hashem. But they themselves, it's a new concept that came into being, and it doesn't have to be. As it's always brought in Chassidus, the expression of the Rambam, that only regarding the Eibishter Himself, we say that He is amitisi motzai. Or the other expression that the Rambam says in Meir Nevuchim, b'chuyev hametzias. He must be, He's it, He's the real concept of existence. Anything else that the Eibishter decides to create, so it's a Afshari hametzias. The Eibishter decided that this should be, but it's a davar mechodesh that the Eibishter decides it should be. It's not something that must and is in essence. So therefore the idea of kviyas, which is permanent, something that really is, does not apply to any level of revelation. That's one point. Now, continuing regarding the idea of tachtainim, to bring the Eibishter down here below. Since when we talk about any level of revelation, it's a existence that has some kind of definition, it's defined in some way, is move on as a gilui is blois dort versus shaykh der inyan von akeli to gilui elokos. So by very definition, the idea of revelation means that in a place where the revelation of godliness could be present, could be naturally felt over there. That's what the whole idea of revelation is. That there's an expression of godly presence. Mashenkin and tachtainim, which is not the case when you talk about tachtainim. What's the idea of tachtainim? V'zenanit kinkeli to elokos. Tachtainim means an element of existence which there's no aspect of revelation here. You don't even see any feeling of godliness, no feeling that it was created, that it comes from anywhere. It is. The yesh, it feels that I'm here, tachtain. The Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, what does tachtain mean? Complete helim v'hester of any godliness. Meaning that the tachtain is disconnected completely. So that, by definition, means a element of existence which is not connected to revelation. So over there, so to speak, godly revelation is not present there. So this is all when you speak about levels of revelation of godliness. Which is not the case when you speak about the essence of Hashem Himself. First of all, the Eibusher himself cannot be defined, or is not. You can't describe him as revealed or concealed. He is in essence. Is not these terminologies are regarding something that's being experienced or expressed. It can't be used regarding Hashem himself. And the Eibusher himself is higher than the entire idea of any changes. Not only no actual changes, but not even the whole concept of changes is impossible. The Eibusher is, in essence, he's the essence of being that is not dependent or defined by anything. So therefore, is Hamshachosai, Hashem being drawn down in this world. The Rebbe immediately clarifies the terminology we're using here regarding the essence of Hashem, Hamshache, in dem Oifen wie es ist shaykh zu sagen Hamshache in Atzmus. However, it is possible to apply the term of Hamshache regarding the essence of Hashem himself. So first of all, we can say regarding Lo Yizbarach, regarding Hashem himself, that Hashem's presence is like a dwelling. It's permanent. He is. It's not changing. It's not shaykh to change. And also specifically over here below in this world. The higher world, the spiritual worlds, Giluyim, which are a place of revelation, of expressions of godliness. Since they are a descent from the true light that there is by Hashem himself, so therefore the higher spiritual worlds where godliness is revealed and experienced, but they are not a place where the essence of Hashem could be received. They're expressing something. They're expressing something specific. An expression of godliness, by definition, is not the essence of Hashem. So therefore, that's not a place where, so to speak, it's a keli. It doesn't allow the essence of Hashem to be nimshach there, so to speak. Dafke in tachtonim. This is nidar that inyan fun giluyim. Here below, where you don't have any expression of anything. There's no gedder that you could describe that this expresses this level or that level. No expression of nothing. Just tachtoin. The very existence of the world itself. Here, the existence of the tachtoin, this is in existence only because of the essence of Hashem. And therefore this is the place where the essence of Hashem will have its permanent dwelling. So those are the 3 points of Lo Yizbarach and Dire B'Tachtainim. The essence of Hashem is permanently dwelling, dafke, specifically here below in this world. Okay, like I said, you can see here that there's a lot of depth in this, and go ahead, learn this, do your research to understand what's going on here. Let's continue. The Rebbe applies this to Avodas Hashem. So based on this, we could also understand B'negei Avodas Adam, regarding a person's Aveda. As the Aveda, to machen, lo yizbarach dir b'tachteinam. Our Aveda, to create this dwelling for Hashem here below, darf getan werden b'ofen kezeh, should be done in this manner, was on masam sein zu der dir latzmusi yizbarach, was werd gemach b'tachteinam. Should be fitting to what the purpose here is, to create that dwelling for the very essence of Hashem, and specifically here below. And the Rebbe applies these 3 details in Aveda. So Aleph, number 1, Lo Yizbarach, the essence of the Eibusher, which means the Aveda darf getan werden blois Lo Yizbarach. A person's motivation in his Aveda should be just for the sake of Hashem himself. As soll sich ausführen sein Ratzen. He's here that Hashem's Ratzen should be fulfilled. Then es Ave von Atzmus Yizbarach, the desire of Hashem himself. Nit al manas lekabel pras. Not looking for any reward, any gain. Not even if it's not a reward, but not even for the purpose of connecting and becoming closer to Hashem through serving Him. Or even if you're not thinking about becoming closer and more connected, but nevertheless, part of your motivation is that I will be the one to fulfill Hashem's will. So there's a little bit of an eye, a very subtle eye, that's involved in that. Not as soll sich ausführen im Eibusher's nesave. Rather, without involving yourself at all, that Hashem's ratzon should be fulfilled, and I happen to be the one doing it, but it's about His ratzon being fulfilled, not about me fulfilling that ratzon. Right? So, in other words, we're talking about the essence of Hashem. There's nothing, when you talk about the essence, there's nothing else that has any significance, relevance, or has any existence at all. So here, the only thing that matters is His plan, His desire. That's it. Base the second point, did it. The Avodah darf sein bei Fishel kvias. A person's Avodah should have this nature of permanence. Das heißt, what this means is, nicht, as Adam steht bei Vidasan Shinuyim, not that a person serves Hashem with fluctuations and changes, and is nicht in demselben Teikiv b'tmidus kol hazman, that it's not with the same strength, with the same dedication all the time. Was das beweist, as an Avodah is nicht bei Fishel dire, kvias. Because if that's the case, it's an indication that his Avodah is not real, it's not permanent. No, there's a temporary level of dedication here. Dira means it should be coming from such a deep place that it doesn't budge, it doesn't change. And then Gimel, the third point, b'tachtainim, which means the Avodah dav zayin be'ikir in inyonim tachtainim. The main focus of a Yid's Avodah should be in the lowest elements of the world. Sai b'negei tzatayra. This is true regarding Torah, Sai b'negei tzah mitzvahs, also regarding fulfilling mitzvahs, Val derech zeh b'negei Yidden, and also regarding which part of the levels of Yidden do we focus on. Kedel Kaman, as the Rabbi will explain these three details of Torah, mitzvahs, and Yidden, what it means, tachtainim, and all these levels. And here as well, the Rabbi points out how these 3 points in Avodah are interconnected. Und euch die 3 Inyanim b'Avodas Adam sind abhängig eine dem Zweiten. They are connected and dependent one on another. Then, if a person is serving Hashem, and there's a motive over here which is connected to your own entity, even the greatest, the most spiritual motive, to want to become more connected to Hashem. Or even as the Rebbe mentioned already before, on a higher level, he has just one motive to fulfill the will of Hashem. Whether it brings me closer to Hashem or not, he's not even thinking about himself. Aber in sein Avodah is reingemischt, der Hergish, as führt durch den Ratzon Hashem. But involved in that motive is also the fact that it's I that is fulfilling the will of Hashem. It's very subtle here because he is focused on the Ratzon of Hashem, but nevertheless he feels that, I have that schus to do the Ratzon of Hashem. If that's the case, demol can zayin shinuyim b'avidasei. That leads to these various changes that there can be in a person serving Hashem. All according to what kind of level of feeling, of love or connection he feels at that moment, if that's part of his motive. And therefore it's not going to be permanent. It's not a dwelling which shows impermanence. And the second point is it'll also be a difference. What does the Avodah demand of the person? What does the Avodah consist of? Whether he has to deal with very high and great spiritual things, or he has to serve Hashem and go down and deal with things that are beneath him on a very low level. In this type of service, he doesn't feel any energy or interest or pleasure in what he's doing. So he can't see himself going down to such a low level. Given Avidasi is lo yizbarach, when a person serves Hashem, and it's completely, utterly just the fulfillment of Hashem's will that matters. As also oisfiren dem Eibishten's kavana, that Hashem's purpose and creation will be fulfilled. Dan zenen alle inyanim firin zu der Hashlama von der kavana by im gleich. So then in that case, there's no I involved at all. Everything, anything that will bring to the fulfillment of this purpose is all the same. And therefore the person has that same steadfast dedication to Hashem unchanged. Hashem's desire was to make a dwelling in the lowest element of the world. So therefore that's what the person is. That's what he focuses on, because that's what Hashem desires. And it makes no difference if I have an interest or chayis in this or not. So we see how these 3 points, Lo Yizbarach and Dire B'Tachtainim, are interconnected in a person's Avodah. So here, the Rebbe brings it back right away to the lifetime and the Avodah of the Frierdiker Rebbe. The Anhaga now, this type of Avodah, in the Ale Drei Pratim with all these details, we saw it very openly and clearly by the Bali Lula, the Frierdiker Rebbe. Kiyudua, it's well known. Vishen Geret Filmal Geret, spoke about this many times, is the Avodah from Bali Lula, Bar Botzas HaTeire V'Chizika Yahadis Geven. What was the Avodah of the Frierdiker Rebbe in spreading Teire and Yiddishkeit and strengthening Yiddishkeit? Ein Hemshech from Mesiris Nefesh. It was one long, continuous Mesiris Nefesh. Ukilosha from the Bali Lula and Sima Maima Now. Using the very words that the Frierdiker Rebbe himself says at the conclusion of the Maim of Basi Lagani, L'mayla mitam v'das, an absolute dedication of Mesiris Nefesh completely higher than any reason or logic. Was the Aveda from Mesiris Nefesh beweist doch, this type of Aveda, with such absolute self-sacrifice, shows as a tutas nitzlib schar ruchni v'chayetze bezeh, that there's no motive over here of any spiritual reward or anything similar. Tzlib shleimus mitzayusay, it'll bring this individual to some higher level. Afilinit kedele dafka be'izbarach. Not even the very dvekus itself, the highest motive possible, to be one with Hashem. No blois lo yizbarach. Rather, just Hashem, this is what He wants, and his Hashem's plan and idea and desire should be fulfilled. The person himself, his existence, does not exist here at all. And more specifically, from the Oifen, is given by the Balei Lula, similar to the way it was by the Friedrich Rebbe himself, that he threw his life behind him. He didn't pay attention to his very own life itself. He endangered his very life for spreading Yiddishkeit and strengthening Yiddishkeit. This was the entire life of the Friedrich Rebbe. On that Nefesh, and the extent and the strength of this Mesiris Nefesh is being given ständig kol meshach zmanis yusei. It was constant, no changes in all kinds of times during his leadership. It was expressed with not just one kind of condition or situation of Mesiris Nefesh, but all different kinds of places he was in the world. Vigaret Barucha is once explained by Riches, the Rebbe spoke about this, the Chiluk von die dreit Kufis, von Esse Shonim, b'meshach seine Nesias Yar and Baal Medain. 3 time periods of approximately 10 years of the Friedrich Rebbe's life in this world. In the times when he was in communist Russia, and a few years continuing from that, the 10 years that he was in Poland, and then the 10 years that he was here in America. As in the alle gar verschiedene Oifani Aveda, very different environments, very different kinds of Aveda that was demanded, is by him given the Zilbe Teik of Mesiris Nefesh. But it was all with the very same consistent strength of self-sacrifice. Which means as follows. Was neisef of them was the Etzam Aveda from Mesiris Nefesh, is doch nit ken Aveda from Ba'ifin Shal Arai. The very concept of Mesiris Nefesh means self-sacrifice. There's no degrees, there's no levels to this, there's no self-involved at all. So there's no fluctuation of this. This is permanent. No kvi is beli shinuyim. It's permanent without any changes. Hayos as the avodas mitzad etzem haneshama. It comes from the very essence of the soul. Versus hechel from shinuyim, that's higher. That's completely above any concept of changes. But besides that, hat sich das ausgedrückt euch in dem Eufen Golli von Mesiris Nefesh. But this Mesiris Nefesh also was expressed and came down in all kinds of situations, as in the alle verschiedene Sorten Avedis, all very different types of Avedis, is by him given the Zelbe Teike von Mesiris Nefesh. It's one thing where a person can have that Mesiris Nefesh in the Etzem, removed of reality and removed of the place where changes are. But to take that permanence and that essence and bring it down and reveal it and apply it in all kinds of situations with the very same permanence without any changes. Although, as the work of spreading Torah and strengthening Yiddishkeit, and spreading the well springs of Chassidus is beim given auf alle Gebieten. This was in all types of areas. But here the Rebbe zeroes in and focuses speaking about Tachtainim, that there was an extra effort and an extra emphasis placed in these 3 points here. Number 1, Aleph, Mesade sein Kittis v'shiyurim mekadoime of Tzilan and Halacha l'Maisa Rabbanis, to arrange so that there should be classes and shiyurim that are given for actual learning of halacha l'maisa, to know actual halacha, for one to be a practicing rav. That people should actually be able to be there in communities to paskin shailas. Schicken Rabbanim in verschiedene kehillas und moishavim and azay weiter. Sending Rabbanim into communities and different settlements where Yidden were. So that's one point. Focusing in Torah on the halacha l'maisa of Torah. So that's the tachtain in Torah. Beis, the second point, in the Hafotze von Kiyum Mitzvahs Maisius, in spreading and encouraging Yidden to fulfill the practical mitzvahs zwischen Yidden so Yidden, amongst all types of Yidden, durch Maise bepoil, by making it possible for them to actually do the mitzvahs. Schicken Shluchim zu bauen mikvahs, sending Shluchim to build mikvahs for Yidden, schicken Meilim, a mile for a bris, and all kinds of things that are practically needed and necessary for the fulfillment of mitzvahs. So that's the Tachtain in the mitzvahs. And Gimel in the meaning von Chinuch al Taras HaKadosh von Tinoike Shol bis Rabban. being mechanech, educating children with the proper purity and holiness of the little children. Miyasad zayin chadarim, to found the chadarim, the schools for the children, shikim melamdum chulu, and to send the teachers to teach these children. So that's, so to speak, the tachtain, the lowest and the youngest amongst Klal Yisrael. Was the Alin Yanim is bechinas tachtainim in Teire o mitzvahs gufe kedlekaman. This is the focus of tachtainim that the Frierdiker Rebbe focused on in all these areas, as the Rebbe will elaborate upon over here and explain. Yes, but and then, so beginning with the union of tachtain and Teire, the halacha lemaisa of Teire. In limudat Teire zenendah kamay fanim. There are many different aspects and ways of learning Teire, or focuses in learning Teire. Onaymendik from limudat Teire vides is lemaila. Teire begins the way it's being learned in spiritual worlds, in Mesifta the Kutshu Berichu, in Hashem's yeshiva, or Mesifta the Rekiah. The Gemara speaks about this. The Mesifta, the yeshiva that there is in heaven, in Gan Eden. Biz vizivet gelernt lamata. Until the Teire, the way it's learned here, the way we understand, and the Teire that we learn here below. And here below, in learning Teire, there are also many levels. Uvehen, and amongst those levels, the limud fun dreish v'kibbutz char, when a person can expound upon Torah on very deep levels, and he gets a unique reward for this, even if what he's learning has no practical application. Yagdel Torah v'yadir, as the pasuk indicates, that the Torah is endless, and the greatness of Torah, Yid has the power to learn and expound upon Torah endlessly. On der limud la sukish maite alibe de hilchase, to learn a sugya, an idea in halacha, and to bring out from this the practical application la halacha of the Torah. Generally speaking, is das the chilek zwischen al yainim and limudat Torah und tachtainim and Torah. This is the difference between the higher level of learning and the level of Torah which applies to tachtainim, to here below. When a person is engrossed and involved in his learning, just to expound upon the Torah, or even if it's not with that kind of a depth, but his focus is not looking for seeing what's the practical application. So here his main focus is the discussion, the ideas, the logic in Torah. So the person's pleasure and energy goes into the comprehension, the understanding of the ideas that the Torah tells you. When one learns Torah and his focus is to bring out a conclusion that applies la halacha, so here he doesn't focus as much on the back and forth and the whole discussion and all the details of the rationale of what it says here, not to wissen, but rather to come and take out the actual instruction that the Torah is telling you that you could apply. So therefore this is the tachtainim of the Torah. The same is also when it comes to mitzvahs maisiyas, the practical fulfillment of mitzvahs. So here as well, there is the lower or the tachtain aspect of the fulfillment of the mitzvahs. In addition to the fact, comparing the fulfillment of mitzvahs to learning Torah, so that's a lower element of a person's involvement in connection to Hashem. He's doing a ma'aseh b'payil, in the action, not in seichel, in the higher kayach of the person. You have the concept of mitzvahs as it exists, so to speak, in the world of Torah. In the time period in Galus when we can't bring karbanis, so one that occupies himself in learning about the halachas of a karban meila, so that learning and understanding, beruchnius, in your seichel about these things is equivalent to fulfilling the mitzvah. So there are different situations when one cannot practically fulfill the mitzvah. Is man eisig b'Torah from the mitzvah, and instead you learn the Torah of this mitzvah, and that counts as if you did the mitzvah. But that though is a mitzvah in the world of Torah. So therefore, regarding this, it said that it's as if you brought the carbon. But it's not the actual fulfillment of the physical mitzvah. And then the Rebbe says there's another spiritual element of mitzvahs, as is the kavanas mitzvahs, and as there's also all the things, the intentions that there are regarding the content and the deeper meanings that are behind the mitzvah that a person should be thinking about and focusing on in a mitzvah. But when we speak about the actual practical mitzvahs, and specifically here regarding this example of karbanis, which applies when the Beis HaMikdash is standing, a yid v'sotn ken yidiyah in hilchas karbanis, even a yid that has no idea about any of the halachas about a carbon. Now, he completely relies on the kayin that's bringing this carbon for him, or v'levi b'duchana, the Yisrael b'mamadai, also the Levim that are there to sing, and the Yisraelim that are there in the maimet to say different psukim in connection to the karbanos that are brought every day, is a mekayim, the mitzvah, and the mechiyav akravas akarbon shalom. You have completely and fully fulfilled a mitzvah with zero knowledge. Seems like the Rebbe may be using this example because in any other mitzvah, some level of knowledge is necessary in how you fulfill the mitzvah. Here you have an example where you could know nothing, you bring the carbon, you give it to the kayin brings that carbon for you, and you have the actual mitzvah, the tachta and the fulfillment of the actual mitzvah. In more detail, that inyan from kiyama mitzvahs b'maise is bechinas tachtainim. The actual physical fulfillment of the mitzvah in action, that is the lowest element of the mitzvah. Legabe dem dibura mitzvah, in contrast to speech that can also be a part of the mitzvah. Unachmer, and even more so, legabe kavanas ha-mitzvah b'machshava v'leiv. And the points that you concentrate upon when you fulfill the mitzvah that are there in a person's thought and in a person's heart. The basic kavanah, that you're doing the will of Hashem, and the specific ideas that you think about, that you get involved in when you do a mitzvah. So there's the action, the lowest element of the mitzvah. So that's the tachton regarding mitzvahs. Now, al derech says, oich moving mit Yidden, mit wem im lernen Torah. And then there is the lowest element regarding Yidden, with whom you are learning the Torah. Der limud von tinoike shel beis rabba. So to learn with the children. Especially when you're learning with children, their very beginning to learn the limud from aleph beis cholo, just learning with them the aleph beis and how to read and so on, is that inyan from tachtainim besugya talmidim et velachem alaren. So this is the lowest level of a student with whom you could be learning the most basic thing, just teaching aleph beis. So those are the three levels of tachtainim that there are regarding Torah, mitzvahs, and yidden. Okay, so now the Rebbe will connect this back, as we said before, that this is connected to the essence of Hashem Himself. And when will a person have the motivation to go down to such a low level regarding these three aspects? So based on this we understand that one should go down and occupy himself in these three elements of tachtainim regarding Torah, mitzvahs, and yidden. So that will only be it's only if he's not looking, he's not trying to find any benefit, any completion for himself. No blois lo yisbarach. It's just being done for the Eibusha, for the essence of Hashem Himself. And again, the Rebbe explains this. When the person is somewhat of an entity for himself, demult is the ikkekach and chayis and b'chinas al yoynef from Torah. So then what happens is your main involvement will end up being in those higher elements of Torah, in them seichel, in the intellect of Torah. That's where a person feels his involvement and he understands and he appreciates. If you're even more sensitive, if you're on a higher level, so the godly revelation that you could sense in the Torah that you learn. So you're ready to learn and teach Yidden that are on this level, that appreciate an idea, appreciate the elokus, the godliness of the Torah. Whether learning the revealed aspects of Torah, and a person that's on a higher level, so he appreciates dafka when he could speak to someone that could understand the depth of Torah, the secrets of Torah. Here you're sensing of how, look, I'm connecting, I'm bringing down godly revelation into the world. When a person learns Torah, and he's focusing just on getting the basic instruction that he needs to know halacha l'maisa. And similar when you're teaching children, just aleph beis, to know how to read. But over here, it's hard for this individual that feels himself in what he's doing, can't get involved in this. He doesn't see the richness. He doesn't even see the godly revelation. He doesn't see the Eibishter being revealed in this. It's just so simple, just words of aleph beis and just simple instruction of things that are not deep and godly. Similar when it comes to fulfilling mitzvahs, is the in kavanas ha-mitzvah. A person that serves Hashem and is self-involved here, so his main energy of his self is expressed in the things that he could think about and connect to on a deeper level. To connect, to cleave to Hashem. Nit azay in the Maisa mitzvah. The actual mitzvah itself, the physical action of the mitzvah, and then kiyum ratzon elyon, the fact that he's fulfilling Hashem's will, there the self of the person he doesn't feel himself expressed in that. Dafke when sein Avodah is lo yisbarach. When a Yid serves Hashem just for the sake of what Hashem wants, soll sich ausführen the kavanah von dem Eibischen, that Hashem's will should be fulfilled. When der Oved allein is nit kemetzias latzmai, and the one serving and fulfilling it, he doesn't see himself involved in this at all. Demult is an Avodah beikir in the beginnis tachtonim. Here, a person serves Hashem, and he's going down to the lowest places in the world. Varum dafkal yidei zeh führt sich durch den Esavach Kadosh Baruch Hu liyis leis barach dir betachtonim, because it's there where Hashem's desire is fulfilled to create a dwelling for Him in the lowest place of the world. So here, the Rebbe brings this down very practically for things that we should be focusing on and doing in our generations. Today, everything has to be explained and translated in very simple words. From the points that we spoke about till here, in our period that we live in, we see that there's a weakness regarding certain things here. The erste inyan is limud halacha lemaisa. The first is the focus on learning practical halacha. Mizet, as be'ezas Hashem Yisbarach, we can see that with Hashem's help is the limud atayre b'chlal hoylechum misrabe. The people learning that constantly more and more people are involved in learning Torah, sai b'kamus and sai b'eichus, whether quantity or even the quality, the level of learning. Aber the limud in anayfim from lasuke shmaita libud hilchase, but focusing on learning halachas, to know the practical halachas, is from them and to the point as from them limud zol nareis kumer rabbanim, that this should produce actual rabbanim was kenen pasken and ashayla and alle vier chalke shulchan aruch, that could pasken ashayla in all four sections of shulchan aruch, or befraten oirachayim, and specifically in the area of oirachayim that discusses the practical halachas that are applied to the daily life of a yid, is midar ledar, from one generation to the next, umishana l'shana, from 1 year to the next, umichaydish l'chaydish, and from 1 month to the next, is this haylech or peiches rachman al-islam. God forbid this. There's less and less people that are qualified for this or that are involved in this. Das was mekennet die Dine von Choshen Mishpat. The fact that one doesn't know the halachas of Choshen Mishpat, which discusses the monetary disputes that could come up, is mitzat matzev. So because of the conditions and the behavior of the countries that we live in today, we should hope as the full that from this no huge problems will come out from the fact that we don't have that many rabbanim that can paskin in this area. When it comes to the halachas of Even Ezer, which applies to the halachas of marriage and so on, and Yerideya, the halachas of Yerideya, which are the halachas of what's mutter and Oster in the kitchen, and all kinds of halachas that are Oster and mutter. How much more so the halachas of Eirachayim, the halachas of Zenenegeya b'poyel mamish. These are the halachas that are relevant constantly. Nit nor in zmanim kvuim, not only in set times, nor in taglich and leben, daily life of Yid. Kishmai Eirachayim. That's what Eirachayim means. This is the halachas that teaches you the way of life of a Yid. Hotman kematnit bei wem zu fragen. You almost don't have who to ask a halacha. You don't have rabbanim available for this. You come to someone was git up sein ganzen Zeit of Limudat Torah. He dedicates all of his time to learn Torah. And you ask of him to clarify for you a certain halacha, and for he answers you, I'm busy learning Torah, expounding upon the depth of Torah. And he's adding more and more light and revelation of Torah. To be able to give a clear instruction regarding birchas hanenem, which bracha to make on any food, in hilchas tefillah, or to know a halacha regarding tefillah, for example, where you're allowed to interrupt in davening or where not, or the hilchas kriyishma, a halacha regarding kriyishma. Di halachas hat nit gelern. This he doesn't know. He has no idea about this. The Rebbe adds regarding this section of halacha, Eirachayim, which is the daily life of a Yid, is da tzvei in the gechasarim. This creates a double problem. In addition to the fact, we don't have rabbanim or enough rabbanim that can give an actual psak regarding these halachas. What happens is everybody just makes up his own mind and paskins for himself these halachas. And the Rabbi explains what happens. A person, a businessman, he's not any Rav, If he's just a God-fearing Jew, will never convince himself as can allein paskin and ashayla in hilchas gitten. That when it comes to a complicated halacha regarding a get, of how it should be done, the kashrus and so on, won't convince himself that he knows the halacha. And even when it comes to a shayla in matters of Oster v'heter and yerideya, he'll also understand that this is not something that he knows about. And he'll ask a Rav. So he'll find a Rav. It might be hard, as the Rebbe says here, it's very hard to find who to ask, but he'll find someone to ask a question. When it comes to the daily halachas of Eirech Chaim, he may then start to convince himself that he could paskin for himself. He'll take a look into the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, if Lashon Kodesh, whether he's looking at the original in Hebrew, und versteht mit Lashon Kodesh, if he doesn't understand Hebrew, if English, Französisch, he'll look at a translated version in English or French. Und dann, wie bei ihm, kommt aus der Pshat in Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. And he'll paskin according to the way he understands the Pshat in Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, which may be incorrect. So he is going to become a paisik for himself, because if he has nobody to ask, he'll begin to rely on himself. And the Rabbi explains why this is a problem, to just rely on a pshat that a simple person may say to himself in a halacha that it says in Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. If when the Beis Yosef wrote his Shulchan Aruch, is given a ganze shakel v'tarye, wie man kann von dort pasken in a halacha, nit wissnig die mekayres v'taimim. So there was a big discussion about this in his times. How could you pasken from Shulchan Aruch, since the halachas there are written without any sources or explanations or reasons, so you don't really understand the halachas. So if that's the case regarding the Shulchan Aruch, versteht man schon, was das kann herauskommen, davon, was man gibt up die Teire, biyade shekol echad ve'echad, we can understand what could happen when people have no choice and they're relying on themselves, and as allein pasken from Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, and that someone will pasken himself in his own understanding of a Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, which is a Kitzur of the regular Shulchan Aruch, and it's written very concisely without any reasons. Und in dem darf sein der Vachai hitten na Libay. So here the living have to take the heart from the Aveda of the Frierdiker Rebbe, from the Aveda from Baalei Elula, was hat sich eingestellt. Frierdiker Rebbe put his life in danger. Viele wenn es gewähnt verbunden mit Zakonis nefoshes mamish, to the point where it was literal danger. Zu miyaset sein, das was it's the angerufen Bati Medrash l'Rabbanim. He founded that there should be a Beis Medrash specifically that they should learn halachas, so there should be Rabbanim. So from this we take the lesson as the alavas and ru'uyim lezeh. Those that are fitting candidates for this, on a philoipsis da suffix is ru'uyim, and even if there's a question whether they are fitting or not, is the matzav is itzte daf mzicha gein lechumre. So the situation today is that you have to include anybody, because possibly he may be a proper candidate. That they should spend their time to learn properly so they can come and pasken halachas to become rabbanim. The merit of the public that needs this will be there for their assistance. This is necessary not only for many that are living in one city, but according to the situation in the present, is this negei to hundrete kehillis and arzes abris and in andere Länder. It's needed in hundreds of congregations or communities here in America and in other countries as well. Which are left without proper rabbanim to pasken halachas of Shulchan Aruch. And so to hundreds of settlements in Eretz Yisrael. The Holy Land, which Hashem's eyes are upon the land constantly. All these settlements do not have rabbanim. As es wird sein, Yate de Shmaya, so definitely they'll have the assistance of heaven, which is especially necessary when you pasken a halacha to be accurate in your psak. To pasken according to the real, true, accurate psak of what halacha is. Was durch dem wird man a shutef l'kadosh baruch hu b'maise bereishis. As the Gemara tells us, paskening a halacha, you become a partner with Hashem in creation. So this is the extreme importance of focusing on halacha l'maisa and establishing a Beis Medrash l'Rabbanim, that there should be people to pasken halachas. The Rebbe moves on now to the chinuch of the little children. The zweite nekuda, the second point, was negeya befrat and heintige tkufa, which is very relevant and especially in our time that we live in. the approach to the education of the little children. Because of the laws of the country that we live in, here in America and other countries that are similar, is gevaran matzav mavel. The situation that we're in is how to explain mavel, not unusual, something which is terrible. Es ist eingestellt geworden. What was established is, as by a kind, a little child, not only a child of the age of 5, not a Philistine Elte von ben Essel Mishnah, a child already at the age of 10, und ben Yud Gimel mitzvahs, even already at the age of a mitzvah, und ben Chamesh Esel Gemara, even older, in the time when he should be focusing on learning Gemara. Durchgehen a Tag von Shnas wie Yemei Lemudim, was soll nicht lernen, ke Lemudei Chayil. A day doesn't pass that he's not learning also secular studies. So the Rebbe says, what should we do about this? The lesson that we have to take here from the Frierdiker Rebbe, the Balei Lulav, he had self-sacrifice. Even more so, he sent other Yidden to give their life up for this purpose. To establish the schools for the children. And as the limud in the Chadarim soll sein Altaras HaKodesh. It should be purely holy, without any other things that are being learned, any other subjects other than Torah. Und nicht mishana sein chas v'sholem die darki achinuch, and not to change, God forbid, the ways of education, wie sie seine gewähnt eingeführt bei Yidden b'meshach kol hadeiros, as it was always the custom and the way it's taught by Yidden in all generations. So that was the Mesiras Nefesh of the Frierdiker Rebbe in his times in communist Russia. It is the halach has kama v'kama b'yameina eila. Most definitely today in our time, in der Medina v'chayetze b'zeh, in our country here and in similar countries. Was es is nit chas v'shalom ha'matzev shel sakana b'guf. So here it's not the same kind of a danger, a physical danger, that you have to give up your life for this. Darf man legen die größte Stadlus. You have to put the greatest effort as the chinuch von jüdische Kinder sollen sein im ganzen Altaras HaKodesh. It should be completely, purely holy. Not to mix into the education of a child even one iota of any secular studies. Nor when the chayk lost nit kein Möglichkeit of nit lernen und nor in dem kamas. Only when the law doesn't allow for another option, and only the bare minimum of what the quantity that the law demands. The Rebbe continues elaborating more upon this focus over here regarding the little children, to what extent the effort in this has to be, and what our outlook on this has to be. The Rebbe says as follows: Afile die was kennen beistehen den Messiah. So this is, the Rebbe before explained what is really demanded, Taras HaKodesh to the utmost degree. But even those that can't withstand the challenge in this area, is aber the emes, so the truth, as bekama v'kama ifanim, kemen yoytze sein mit haprat shebeprat und afanem hachikoten. There are in many different ways how you can be yaitse. You can just do the bare minimum with just a small detail, or just to focus the least possible in the secular studies that are required. Says legamri ken hechrich nit. It's completely not necessary, as the limude chayil zon zayin in dem kamos ve'echos, that it should be to the level of quantity and level of quality as well. Wie sie sehen in itzda eingefitten Bate Sefer, the way it is today in the Yiddish schools, welche gefinden sich unter die Anholle von Anoshim, oi Noshim Yirei Shamayim. The way it is today, the schools, whether for the boys or for the girls, that Rebbe adds here, Anoshim, oi Anoshim, Anoshim, oi Noshim, the level of involvement in the Limudei Chayil is not necessary. They just have to be made aware of this and have to be encouraged, as they don't have to be so from to be mahader exactly, to do exactly what the law requires. Rather, their main emphasis should be to be mahader and fulfilling Hashem's commands and Hashem's mitzvahs. Of what we have sworn, and you accepted this at Matan Torah Bahar Sinai, before any of these laws of the country were established. That's where the main emphasis should be. And whatever laws requires to learn secular studies, it should be to the very bare minimum. Yes, it's true. We know that the Gemara tells us as din the malchus dina, the laws of a country has a takeif. It means something. Also, according to halacha, dina, it's a halacha that it's a law that we should follow. Is aber, however, you can't take that out of context. Because Neisuf Lazeh, in addition to the fact, was in Inyanim von Yiddishkeit, when it comes to matters of Yiddishkeit, so here to quote the expression that the Frierdiker Rebbe himself said, regarding when he gave a speech about the subject of Chinuch, of Yiddish education, haben mir Yidden of sich nit ken Deesager. We Yidden have nobody that can tell us opinions about our education. Is a filazah was can't beistehen den sein. Even someone that can't withstand this test, from learning nor limudei kodesh, to give a proper chinuch which is completely dedicated only for learning limudei kodesh, the Yiddish Torah and the things of holiness, is in the mesgares was chuke medina erleuben. So even within the framework of what the laws of the country allows, darf sein die Ishtadlus, there should be an effort, mehrere Zeit, as mehrere Zeit von the Talmidim und Talmides, valachas kama v'kama, mehrere simas leiv, so that the actual time for the students, and the Rebbe again mentions both the boys and the girls, and most definitely the attention that's given for the students, soll sein verbunden mit limudei kodesh. It should be primarily in limudei kodesh. Blois, das was is muchrich, l'chol hadayis, soll man abgeben of limudei chayil. And the bare minimum of what's necessary, according to all opinions, meaning don't take the most chumradig opinion for this. That's where the bare minimum should be in the secular studies. Das is in Sugob to them. There's another point here, which the Rebbe adds, another important point, as das lernen, limudei chayil, soll sein mitten de fri. Never established the seder of the day that the limudei chayil secular study should be in the morning. But tchilas halimud, the first thing that the child learns in the morning. The Rebbe brings the lashon of the pasuk reishis arisa seichen, which simply means regarding the dough, when you have to take off first from the dough to give to the kayin. But the Rebbe translates reishis arisa seichen here to mean arisa seichen could be referred to also the bed, when you go out of the bed the first thing in the morning. Es is legamri nit neged achayk. It's not against the law at all. As reishis arisa seichem zal zayin tarimu truma l'Hashem. That the first thing when you wake up in the morning, when you're fresh, so then you should dedicate the time to Hashem. Elevate the children to Hashem. Truma means to elevate. Durch limud terasa shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, by learning Hashem's Torah. Und erst danach, later on in the day, b'shas the kinder schon vermatet, when the child is already tired, und man hat nicht kein Brede, and because there's no choice, git men a meshach zman hachim etzumtzum of limudei chayil. So then give him the least necessary for learning secular studies. And the Rebbe adds to this, since Hashem only asks of a yid to do something which is within his power, is a zichere zach, it's most definite as mit a shtadlus achik kala, with even just a very small effort, ubesimis leva masima, and giving this the proper attention, kemen gleich makten sein dem zman, was yiddische kinder lernen limudei chayil. You could at least decrease from the time that children are learning secular studies. Und abgeben shaloi be'erech, merer zman, and to dedicate much more time, sai bekama sai be'echos, in quantity and in quality, of limudei kodesh, in learning the holy studies, to learning Torah. The achlata darf nur sein in an ofen, but you just have to make a resolution about this in such a manner, was me fehlt, as der inyan is a davar muchrich, that this is something which is absolutely necessary. Varam hazay is the psak din in Hilchas Talmud Torah. This is the halacha in Hilchas Talmud Torah, that a child should only be learning limudei kodesh. This is not some kind of a chassidish hiddur, but it's actually based on an actual psak din in Hilchas Talmud Torah. I mean, this must be referring primarily, I believe, or maybe only to the boys, that the limudei kodesh. But before that, Rebbe spoke about anoshim oinoshim b'chlal, and again to the focus of education of Yiddishkeit. It's another point. Und demult is adav barer as mevetas durchführen. And then it's a definite thing with the proper attention and the proper resolution that this can be fulfilled. Just as we saw by the Bali Lula, by the Frierdiker Rebbe himself, as nit guckendig of them, not looking at the fact that there was absolutely no chance at all. If you would look at nature, as eine Stadlis and Chinuch al Taras HaKodesh b'Medina, he's matzliach sein, that all of his effort in the Chinuch, in that country there, and under communism, should be successful. Zet benitzte the peiris from der Stadlis b'nei Basar. We could see now the fruits of his labor, and we could see what he accomplished physically. And the Rebbe explains what he's talking about. As meget areisen gas, the größte Städte nahe Sabris. If you go out into the street in the big cities in America here, or the Ergets Anders, or anywhere else, und betrefft and you find grandchildren, was stammen von Eltern, was eine gewähnt mit 20 oder 40 Jahre zurück, the grandchildren of their grandparents, which were 20 or 40 years ago in communist Russia. And you see that this grandchild is a fromme Yid, he's following the ways of Torah and mitzvahs. And you ask him, wie hat man sich gekannt halten bei Yiddishkeit? How? You're a grandchild from a grandfather that was in communist Russia. How were you able to hold on to Yiddishkeit in such a condition? Is b'shas mischaike v'deirish. When you research the matter, you find out that that either the father, sein madrech, or whoever was his guidance counselor, or the sein zayde v'chulu, his grandfather or the like, haben gehat a kesha. It's because they had some kind of a connection. Tzia mage o masa, some kind of a contact, mit eine von the shluchim from the Baal Halula, with one of the shluchim of the Rebbe, Friedige Rebbe, von Yiddishkeit. They aroused them and awakened them to the matters of Yiddishkeit. Und hat gelernt mit dem und hat sich behalten mit dem zusammen auf dem Beidem oder nach Chelek kadei zu lernen v'chulu. They learned Torah with his grandfather, or they learned Torah with him, rather. They learned Torah wherever it was, in an attic, in a basement somewhere, in some underground school. Und der Vater is geblieben bei Yiddishkeit, and therefore he remained connected to Yiddishkeit. So if the Friedige Rebbe was able to do that in his times, how much more so today with the proper resolution we will fulfill this. Is al derech zeh. So similar, by the Alavas Heilchim, by Chaysav, Netzach, Selavod, all those that are following in his ways forever, as durich the Yishtadlis in the Aveda now, through the effort in this Aveda, from Machazik Zayin Mchinuch al Taras HaKodesh, to strengthen education with the purity of holiness. That Meziche, Matzliach Zayin, of Oifsteln, the Tzivus Avaya, we will definitely be successful in educating the children that are in the army of Hashem, V'zvelen B'karev, Mamish, which speedily in our times, Areizgem from Golas Achrim, will go out of this last Golas, in the Gula, Mitzvah Shleima, in the ultimate and final redemption, Al Yidei, Mashiach Tzidkenu, Uba Gola, Didan, may it be in our times.